Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for the warm introduction, for your terrific leadership, and see you later. The Secretary is leaving to get ready for a cabinet meeting with me. So basically, I am filibustering to give him time to go get ready for that meeting. Peter and Michael, thank you for your leadership, for convening us all. I'm particularly grateful to you, Peter, for the work that you lead through the council and how important a partner you have been. Many of my colleagues are here from state government, and I understand we're going to have a little conversation before I have to go. Is that right? You want me to take some questions or comments or advice? And you can give me your usual list of standard list of non-negotiable demands, and my colleagues will help to respond. But I'm particularly glad that you are all here because you're in the right place at the right time. I have, as you know, spent most of my career in the private sector, and one of the things that worried me about the companies I worked for and with was this incredible pressure to manage for the next quarter, to get the short-term gains, I think sometimes sacrificing or at least putting on the back burner the long-term interests of the enterprise. And that behavior, I think, has crept into the way we govern in this country, where we govern for the next election cycle or the next news cycle, and not necessarily, or in every case, for the next generation. So we brought a different approach, emphasizing the things that would leave a lasting improvement in the strength of this Commonwealth by growing opportunity. Specifically, as the Secretary said, and I hope all of you know, by investing in education, in infrastructure, and in innovation. We invest in education because education is our global calling card and our economic edge. The world needs well-prepared young minds and mid-career talent, and with almost 300 colleges and universities within a 90-minute drive of where we sit right now, brain power is in many, many respects our most abundant natural resource. So we've expanded support of and instituted new reforms in the public schools with the help and partnership of the legislature. We are rebuilding our public college and university campuses, and we're working hard to make early education and college affordability more broadly available. We invest in infrastructure, which, as you all know, I describe as the unglamorous work of governing, because rebuilding our roads, rails, and bridges, expanding broadband to every community, building new classrooms and labs, and affordable housing gives private initiative and personal ambition the platform for growth. And we invest in innovation, of course, because enabling and encouraging industries that depend on the kind of concentration of brain power we have is the best way to take advantage of the knowledge explosion happening in the world. That's what our Life Sciences Initiative has been about. That's what the revival of the digital technology sector is about, meaning robotics, big data, cybersecurity, and communications. That's having a resurgence too. So education, infrastructure, and innovation, it's a proven strategy, it's a working strategy, and creating a clean energy future is right in the middle of that. One of our generation's biggest long-term challenges is energy, where to get it, how to sustain it, and how to keep it cost-effective. And so 5 years ago, as you all know, we in Massachusetts took a fresh look at our energy future, starting with our current realities. Energy in Massachusetts has been costly for a relatively long time. With no oil, coal, or natural gas of our own, we are at the end of the pipeline and are subject to the whims of a global energy market. We bear all of the costs associated with finding, extracting, and transporting fuels from all corners and in many cases distant corners of the world. We spend billions of dollars annually to import fuel from places like South America, Canada, and the Middle East. That is lost economic opportunity here in Massachusetts that we stand, I think, poised to reclaim through investments in homegrown renewable energy programs. So working together with many of you, we set out to shape a different future. We set ambitious goals for changing how much and what kind of energy we consume, and gave businesses, families, and local governments tools we need to get there. We focused at the outset on energy efficiency, making it our first fuel to meet new energy needs. We're making $2.2 billion in energy efficiency investments over 3 years, and will deliver nearly $9 billion in benefits for consumers. We are now in a position to meet future power needs without any new generation capacity. For the second year in a row, as you know, we lead the nation in energy efficiency. I love saying that, especially when I'm in California. 131 Massachusetts communities have adopted clean energy building codes and are designed to achieve up to 20% savings in new construction. We are testing new ways to build zero net energy buildings at competitive costs and stretch codes that pay back in energy savings in less than 2 years. 110 communities representing nearly half of all of the residents of the Commonwealth have committed to cutting municipal energy consumption equal to the annual energy consumption of more than 13,600 Massachusetts homes and the greenhouse gases from more than 31,000 cars. Imagine that. Wind and solar are also a part of our strategy. When I took office, Massachusetts had a nominal commitment to renewable energy, a total of about 6 megawatts of solar and wind energy combined. In May, we reached our 2017 goal of 250 megawatts installed solar 4 years early. Phil loves that, don't you, Phil? I see you smiling over there. We are at 263 megawatts of solar power now, and will reach 1,600 megawatts by 2020. We are also working with the other New England states to bring large-scale wind and solar to our region through coordinated procurement processes and long-term contracting. This kind of collaborative approach makes sense in New England, and it will accelerate markets and innovative partnerships across the region. Today, 5,000 clean tech companies in Massachusetts employ 72,000 people. 72,000 people. The sector grew over 11% last year, defying national and global economic trends. These are real jobs in both small, homegrown, and large multinational companies, companies that are changing the dynamic of how we use energy and steward the environment while growing our innovation economy. Indeed, Massachusetts has attracted more clean energy private investment per capita than any other state in America. And let me speak directly to those investors and company decision makers. Whether you are in solar, energy storage, energy efficiency, lighting, wind, biofuels, fuel cells, whatever it is, we want you here. We want you here. We want you to develop your next products here. We want you to manufacture here. Let me repeat that. We want you to make what you invent here. And we want to help you find the right environment. It may be Boston, it may be Cambridge, it might also be the South Coast or Central or Western Massachusetts or up in Merrimack Valley, where the economics work for your manufacturing. We're strengthening our community colleges to better align with your workforce needs so that you have the talent you will need. And we're working to create an even better atmosphere that encourages our inventors to manufacture your products here in Massachusetts by using a few tools that fill in gaps in the private sector. We've positioned Massachusetts as the global leader in biotech and life sciences. If we work together, we can do the same in the clean energy space. Whether we like it or not, there will be winners and losers when it comes to the clean energy future. We can wait for that future to happen, or we can shape it. I'm on the shape it side. I hope you are too. Thank you for having me. So, do you want me to, whatever you like. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, great.
Thank you, Governor Patrick. You can see why in this region we have such a great opportunity because of the vision and the long view that you described. Why don't we open it up to a question or two while you have a moment with us?
Great.
Anybody I can call on? Over on this side. I see Phil, right?
Governor, how do we move the country forward in a similar way?
Well, you mean, what was that? Is that you, Carl? Replaying? Already? I just finished. So you mean beyond changing the Congress? Which, by the way, is part of it. I'm not kidding. is a part of it. Well, we need to elevate these issues. We have to make the sense of urgency that we have felt here, urgency and opportunity that we have sensed here in Massachusetts and exploited, frankly, here in Massachusetts, a part of the national dialogue. I think the other thing we can do is do what we're doing here well, and be that model. Show people that there is both environmental and economic wisdom in this plan. And that's why I think it is so important to keep the dialogue going. You know, if we just settle and say, well, we did it, you know, we did a bunch of bills a few years ago, and so everything's okay. I mean, what you remember we had the thing with the solar, help me, people. No. No, but you know what? Carl, actually, I was talking about the solar goals and resetting the solar goals, but I think that's so adjusting as we've gone along. But I will come back to Carl's bit about his little dig about evergreen. This is the other part of the innovation economy. Our risk tolerance has to go up, right? You do not grow without taking chances, especially if it's in a new space. Now, this is public money, and so I get that we don't get to treat it like the private sector. But for all of us, our risk tolerance, even in the public space, has to go up if we're going to build this new international supercluster around clean tech. Yeah.
Governor, what's your take on the possibility of the EPA regulating emissions at the state level, where they can green the power source or ramp up energy efficiency and renewables in order to meet certain targets?
Following that Supreme Court case? Wasn't there?
NBC and the EPA are considering whether there's a way to limit those emissions by state.
Yeah.
Is that a route that Obama could take that would avoid that Congress?
Maybe. What do you think? Alicia, you want to come on up?
Thanks, Governor. I think, thanks for the question, Jeff. I think he's talking about the Obama administration has been considering whether, under the Clean Air Act, they can make progress on climate by regulating greenhouse gases directly at the state level, as you suggested, because of the failure of Congress to act on comprehensive climate legislation. You know, personally, we've been long supporters of that here in Massachusetts, and through obviously the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which is, many people are surprised to know that cap and trade already exists here in this country. People think, you know, because of the rhetoric nationally, that it's something that we'll never see, or it's just impossible, or dead on arrival, and that's been, unfortunately, a lot of the rhetoric nationally, but it's been successful, and in particular has delivered huge economic benefits here in Massachusetts. By statute, we reinvest all of it has to be at least 80% of the proceeds from RGGI auction allowances back into energy efficiency, and that has created, by independent analysis, billions of dollars of economic benefit here in the Commonwealth. So I think that the Mass DEP and the environmental agencies have long supported EPA's efforts to use the tools that it has, and it does have some tools under the Clean Air Act legally that they can move forward pursuant to the Supreme Court decision that you referenced, Governor. And that is definitely, I think, on the table, and it'll be a fight, though, for the Obama administration, and Mass DEP and some of the other progressive states, like the RGGI states, have been trying to help and work closely with EPA to give them the support to think through the best ideas of how to do that.
Bobby, you want to add?
Only that it will help us very much help our Global Warming Solution Act goals, which, Jeff, you're very, very engaged in.
Yeah. Don't leave.
Nope, we're right here.
Yes.
About politics. There's been a lot of discussion, MIT and around the country, about regional initiatives.
Mm-hmm.
We're splitting the country up. Regional initiatives. And states are political entities, too. We've got great clean energy resources around this region.
Mm-hmm.
Just an example, throwing out an example, wind in Maine.
Right.
And onshore wind
Right.
in Maine.
Right.
getting, for example, those assets to where there is supply to those places where there is demand, huge demand. Can you talk a little bit about working across state lines politically to, because a lot of people in this room care about the regional aspect too.
Well, I would, I'll start and then you guys jump in. I would offer one example that's 6.5 years old and one that's recent. Reggie is an example of regional collaboration to the great benefit of our Commonwealth and I think to the environment. I think the other participants would feel the same way. The New England States Initiative, I forget what we call it, but around
Well, there's several of them. CONAG is one of them.
well, I was thinking in particular about the new agreement to work on hydro and wind.
Right.
Um,
And through NESCO.
NESCO?
New England States Council of.
Council on Electricity.
Right.
Okay, that. And
None of us named it.
which is and you know we've had conversations in the New England Governors Association about this very thing. How do we take advantage of large-scale hydro as a renewable source without subsidizing Canada? How do we take advantage of onshore wind in Maine, down here in Massachusetts and Connecticut where the demand is greater? You know, all those issues of transmission, which are at the heart of it, and long-term contracting, which makes the economics work, are what we're trying to work out. I think the next big thing, or another big thing, is the grid. We need a new grid nationally. If we, rather
Big
than
money.
wait.
Big money in that one.
Well, but rather than wait for a national solution, can we model a regional solution? Can we start to think in that way? And mostly, I would say when the lights aren't on, governors are problem solvers. We don't, when the lights come on, now we can posture like anybody. But when the lights are off and it's just us in a room, we're trying to figure out how to solve problems which are quite common across the region. But I don't know whether you guys want to add.
No, I think that was great.
You all right? Let me take one on this side and then I'll come back.
Morning, Governor.
Good
Thanks
morning.
for being here. Your administration obviously has a great track record in building the policy infrastructure for the success we've had here. I'm wondering if there's one or two additional sort of priorities for you in the next couple of years while you're still in charge.
Do I have any additional policy priorities in the next?
I think really the regional hydro.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
there's
true,
regional
yeah.
hydro, and then
Come on,
well, first of all, this growth on regional hydro and the issues of cooperation among states, I think, is one that we're going to totally build on. I think also it's this notion of getting innovation into our utilities and getting this whole motion, things moving more quickly through our smart grid initiative. And I think this is really the name of the game. And I'll turn it back to the governor to give some other thoughts. But I think we're really very focused on these issues for the next year and a half.
Well, I will just say on the utilities, Alicia, did you want to say
No,
something?
go ahead.
I don't, look. They are a regulated monopoly. The promise of deregulation has not been met in the sense of competition to drive rates down, at least as I experience it as a consumer. Now, in the industry, they will talk about, oh, you know, there's competition for this and that, and I think the real reason rates have gone down so significantly is because gas prices have changed. I wish there was a way that a homeowner like me could choose between two different companies based on electricity rates, or to choose among a bunch of companies so I could independently generate my own off-the-grid electricity. I'm trying to think, you asked for a priority. The reason I don't put this in the list of priorities is because I don't have in my mind yet what the new model of a utility is. But I think it's got to be out there. It's got to be out there. And I know that people are working on different ways of getting at this, but we've got to have something that, from both an environmental and I think an economic competitive point of view around driving rates down, that frees us from the, the tethering that we have to utilities in their current form. I'm sorry, there was one over here.
I'll follow on that just for.
Okay, please.
You can add the other microphone here. You can keep that. If this one is on, I think that that's a perfect segue in many ways to the kind of things we're going to be working on throughout this day, but where there's work going on across the region, the grid modernization work with the Department of Public Utilities has been an opportunity over the last couple of months to start to lay out the framework for what could help to be a way to modernize the business model as well as the technologies and the pricing and the economic structures. And I think there may well be an opportunity to start to move that, put that in motion during the rest of your administration. And there's also work going on at MIT, and that's why we're gathering here today on these sorts of things, and why we have someone from National Grid on our last panel where we're talking about how these models are changing. So we will
Charlie,
look for
you
your
can work
leadership.
on that too, you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe one more.
Governor Patrick, Matthew Norton from the venture capital firm Venrock, and I want to thank you for your leadership on these issues. What challenge do you have for us? What do you want to see from the finance and the entrepreneurial communities that you're not seeing in clean energy?
Well, I won't say I'm not seeing it, but I can anticipate where we're going to be in a little while when so many of the ideas you and others are investing in are ready to be broadly commercialized. Because if the pattern of many industries in our past continues, they will compare the cost of manufacturing in Kendall Square to the cost of manufacturing in Texas or North Carolina, and completely blow by the South Coast, Western Massachusetts, and Merrimack Valley, where we can be competitive. And so I am really, really keen that as a part of the quiet renaissance in manufacturing here, is really around precision or advanced manufacturing, that we have a chance in Massachusetts to compete for that. And I think those are really good jobs, and I think we will be very, very competitive so long as folks are willing to think about the whole Commonwealth and not just the neighborhood right around us here.
Do you have time for one? We'll make this the last question. Okay.
Governor, thank you for your vision and perfect take to look in.
There's a microphone there. Yeah.
Thank you. A couple of thoughts. Over half the dwelling units in Massachusetts are multifamily dwellings, and it's very difficult for them to put solar on the roofs because of legislative barriers, and also because if a condo, for example, buys a system for its unit, they're looked at as utility and they can't sub-meter. Is there some way to go ahead and break that barrier down and have that market open up? It's really, I've done some calculations, it's over a $1.5 billion market. If you put 2 kilowatts on each roof and it's $4 a watt to put on a roof, that's roughly $1.5 billion.
I like those numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also segues into the utility issue. You know, the utilities have a whole workforce that's trained to put in electrical systems. They've got boom trucks, they've got electricians. There are other satellites, companies they use to do their installation. Why don't we let the utilities get into the renewable energy generation business, create a virtual utility by putting on residential rooftop solar, and somehow get over this barrier? It's not a traditional fossil fuel generating business that we separated from 20 years ago.
Right.
But it uses their own labor and their own equipment, and they get more benefit out of that by doing that. So let's let them get back into that business and see if they want to do that.
I like, I mean, first impression is, my first impression is all of that sounds good. And we're going to have those, what's that? And we're going to have, you know, if you keep telling us what you need and what works, I guess the point to get across here is that this administration, the senator, the rep, many of their colleagues want to respond. Don't sit around bitching and moaning about what hasn't happened yet. because we're not the experts you are. I'm not suggesting you were bitching and moaning, by the way. But my point is, your real value as a council to us is teaching us what you need. And then we can debate about how to get it just so. We're not going to say yes to everything, but we're not going to know as well as you what the barriers may be or what the opportunities may be, so you got to talk to us. And you have been. I think that's why we've gotten as far as we have. So as I listened to your two suggestions, my first reaction is, yeah, that sounds right. Let's work on that, and there will be others that will come out of this conversation and others.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you so much for your partnership
Thank
and
you,
your vision.
everybody.